You are not far from the kingdom of God. Such a great statement, and Jesus responding to the scribes as he repeat what Jesus is teaching in the commandments to love God and to love our neighbor as ourselves. So in this whole context of Mark chapter 12 then, and given the situation that we encountered in our nation during the past many days, it helped us to kind of pause and reflect upon these questions. What is your standard of love in your life, in your faith, in this country or any other country? In your relationship, do you have a standard in the way that you love? Jesus gave us that beautiful standards here as he repeat the teaching of Leviticus, or in the Old Testament, as he proclaimed to this, answering the response, the question of the scribes. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus gave us the standard to love God and to love our neighbor and every part of our totality of who we are. How beautiful that is, that the commandments to love become a standard for us to treat one another. So I ask you again, what is your standard of love today? Is it based on trust? Is it based on honesty? Or is it based on what we've been hearing with signs that said, no justice, no peace? Or maybe that is the standard for many of us. Justice, peace, equality. And for us here, it is love, compassion, mercy. Wherever your standard of love is, we need to re-examine what's happening today and in the context of the scriptures too. George Floyd's death has awakened this whole nation in a way that is so unique, but also awakened the whole world. But asking all of us here, what is our standard of love as a nation? But before we explore that whole area, let us go back to ourselves. What is your standards of love? Whatever that may be, let perfection may not be that standard of love. Because perfection can destroy this whole areas of what love is and what vulnerability is. As often proclaimed here by Brene Brown, who's a beautiful sociologist and profound speaker. She said here, perfectionism hampers success. In fact, it's often the path to depression, anxiety, addictions, and night paralysis. So I'm not asking you to lower your standard of love, but I'm asking you not to use perfections as the way that you treat one another, as the way you expect of one another. So in a way that we live our life during this time of the pandemic, it's like a perfect storm where people are unemployed as a result of the pandemic, where we see a lot of racial discrimination, even being Asian during the pandemic. And now with the killing of George Floyd, it's reawakening everything in all of us. So by what standard do we live as a society, as a country? We use the standard of law, the rule of law, as a way that helps us to gauge one another, to avoid favoritism, to avoid nepotism, to avoid self-centeredness even. But when the rule of law is being created in a way that causes us to see there's a double standard of love, then it will make us feel that there is no justice, there's no peace. That love is a myth, too. So whatever your standard of love is, let us try to rule out perfections. Let's try to rule out that double standard that you may have or I may have. But let us see that authenticity of being who we are during this time. But maybe during this whole pandemic then too, it allows us maybe when we're living in such a confined space where husband and wife have never seemed so close to each other. In the morning you expect your husband or your wife to leave home and go to work. Your children go to school. Now you're in that confined space. You get irritated by each other. A little habit makes a big things out of it. So maybe lower or relax that standard in a way saying that I don't have to be perfect. My family members during this kind of pandemic do not have to be perfect. So relax your standard during this time. But second, when you look at your standard of love too, you also need to communicate clearly your needs. Because if not, it can breed resentment. And resentment in any type of relationship, in any type of standard is never healthy. So how do you communicate your standard of love during this time of the pandemic or during this time of unrest in our nations? Maybe just to say honestly is, I need you to take out the trash because it's getting heavier. I need you to climb up to get something for me because it's too high. Instead of saying, you never take out the trash, you never do anything for me. So avoid using the you in the standard of your love, but to express in the I and the because, so that frustrations, anger, difficult words can be avoided in many ways. So Jesus gave us the standard of love. God and neighbor equally. Because in loving God, we love our neighbor as that expressions of living out our faith. And so let us go forward this evening then to re-examine your standard of love. May you not allow perfections or double standard to breathe in being who you are, but to truly always see justice, peace, love, and mercy to be every part of our corners of who we are, whether we are baptized Christians or non-believers.